Alright, this is a video on the long-term storage of a cryogenerator. Typically what happens is, well not typically, but we have one in storage, and typically when one of them craps out or is broken for some reason and we can't fix it here and the tech cannot fix it locally when they come, we send it back to the Netherlands over to DH Sterling, or actually now they're just Sterling Cryogenics. And they fix it, do what they're going to do over there, test it, make sure it's running at optimal power, ship it back, create it up, and then send it back to us. And typically, when that process is happening, we order some spare parts and some oil and etc. So typically what they do is in the crate that they ship the cryogenerator in, they also send us spare parts. And those would basically be lining the outside of the crate here, and they would be in their own individually wrapped boxes. So the very first thing you would need to do when this crate arrives, after you've gone through the whole thing with customs and all that and gotten the crate here, is open it up. Typically you need to open more than one side up. We lucked out this time when we've only heard and the first side that we opened was the side that was facing the gate. So, coming closer. Typically what will happen is they will send this with no oil and it'll be slightly pressurized. What happens is they depressurize it over at their facility, but there's like little small traces of inert gas like helium that they use to test it inside there, and when it's shipped, it typically undergoes some relatively harsh environments in terms of fluctuations in heat, from being pretty cold to being really hot. So what happens is some of the trace gas that was left in here basically expands and the pressure inside this thing goes up. So the very first thing you need to do is come over to any one of these two valves. At this point it comes disconnected, so either one can be the fill and either one can be the bleed. So you would come over and basically open up one of these valves and depressurize it. And when it comes from their factory, it will be quote unquote depressurized, but like I just said, there will be some trace gas in here that has expanded and has made like that, and so it will have some non-zero gauge pressure. So when you open it, it should trickle out a little bit, and then you know you've depressurized the whole thing, and then you just leave that open. So the next thing that needs to happen is, in terms of long-term storage, the goal of the long-term storage is basically to make it such that it's pressurized to some nominally low pressure in bar here, and that it has oil in it such that all the parts on the inside are lubricated. And like I said, they will send it from the factory, no oil and very minimal pressure. So like I said, first thing, straight from the factory, open it up, purge it such that there's nothing left inside, and then you want to open this plug here. All right, this plug here is the oil plug, and on the other side of the cryogenerator there is an equivalent plug. So you open that plug up and you fill up the oil until you're above the black sight glass in here, and I'll zoom in on this so you can see you can see the two sight glasses there. And obviously this should be all done when the system is not pressurized. Like I just said, the very first thing that needs to happen is you basically remove all trace gas that is inside the cryogenerator such that the pressure difference between it and the outside environment is zero. Now that you, then once you've put oil in here, and there's another video in the Kapepel YouTube on how to put oil in here, so I will not go do that here. But essentially you open this plug, put oil in it up until you're at least the top black line on the sight glass, and then you close it back up. Then you come over here and turn this crank in the direction that these arrows are pointing. And what that does is that circulates some of the oil in some of the joints that can't be accessed unless you turn this. Obviously when you do that, the oil will go down, so you open this plug back up and keep putting in more oil and keep doing that. And so basically when you turn it, the oil level does not change anymore. All right. The very next thing, once you've basically gone through that whole procedure and you've ensured that everything in here is well lubricated, and the oil is filled to the nominal amount, is you, like I said, close this back up, give that one more turn, and then the next thing to do is pressurize this thing with about 10 bar of helium. So there is a video on the Kapepel YouTube as well for filling this up with helium, so I won't go through that. There's another video that you can just scroll through and find. The important point here is that this sways lock valve that they send has a 3/8 inch NPT fitting on the brass side that they then connect a 3/8 inch NPT to some random metric tube size. So you will need to replace it like we've done with a 3/8 inch NPT to 1/4 inch NPT, to 1/4 inch swage tube fittings, so that it's basically compatible with the type of swage fittings that we use here at the lab. So this was the old one that they sent on the cryogenerator that goes from 3/8 inch to that random metric size tubing. And this is the one that has been replaced with the 3/8 inch NPT to the 1/4 inch swage lock. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and just hook up the lines from the helium bottle, and it needs to be grade 5 helium, so 99.999% purity helium, ultra high purity helium. You connect it up, ensure that there's no leaks here. You open this up, you purge this system 5 times, and by purge I mean you fill it up with helium to 5 bar, close it, purge it, fill it back up to 5, close it and purge it, and repeat that process 5 times. Once you've done that, you can close the purge valve, fill it up to helium at about 10 or 15 bar, and you've essentially prepared it for long-term storage. Once that is done, you can pretty much just go ahead and close the crate back up and take it to wherever it is that you're going to store it. Typically we store it up at CNES, and somebody else in the lab should know where that is. If you don't know where that is, as the operator or the person that's doing this for perhaps the first time. I went through this relatively quickly. The very first thing you want to do, obviously, is look at the long-term storage instructions here, but this video is just supposed to be a helpful type of instructional thing now that I've already done it, or now that we have already done it here at the lab, and it just makes it easier and as a sanity check for yourself to make sure that you went through the whole process. So that's pretty much it. Big recap, this thing comes from the Netherlands, no oil, very minimal pressure. First thing is bleed out all the pressure, fill it up with oil, and make sure that oil has been circulated in the whole thing by essentially turning the crankcase in the same direction that these arrows are pointing. Once the oil has been evenly distributed through, and you've ensure that it's up at the top of the sight glass, you can close up the oil plug here, go ahead and fill the cryogenerator with helium up to about 10 or 15 bar after you've purged it 5 times. And then you close all the valving, make sure there's no leaks, and then you can just go ahead and close this up and store it. Alright, so thanks.